Welcome back to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're going to be taking a look at Crysis 3 Remastered on the Nintendo Switch, and it wraps up the trilogy. If you haven't seen them already, check out my reviews of the first two entries in the pinned comment down below. With that though, hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here, join our growing family, and let's get started. So story, and we're keeping it high level to avoid spoilers from the prior two entries, but here we're returning as a super soldier and member of Delta Squad. Now following shortly after the events of Crysis 2, we are back in New York City. This time around though, it's not the New York you remember, rather it's been transformed into a rainforest of sorts, sheltered by what is a nanodome. Created by the C.E.L.L Corporation, you need to get to the bottom of what this is all about, while also hunting for the alien Ceph. Feels like a natural extension of the past two entries, and it's a mostly satisfying conclusion, bringing back some familiar faces, and yeah, I enjoyed it as much as those first two entries. So gameplay, and again, first person shooter. If the first was open world in design and the second was linear, this one it finds a nice middle ground, creating a clear path through New York City, but often presenting you with these smaller sandbox locations to explore. It allows for a feeling of more control over the action in comparison to that second entry, in the sense you now have the freedom, like the first game, to attack in your playstyle of choice, whether that's, all hell breaks loose with gunfire, or you stealth out your enemies. Controls they carry over from the past two entries, so we'll keep it quick, but the Nanosuit it returns, meaning the ability to go invisible. You can also do a super jump and also add armor. This is all attached to a timer. Then you have super strength, which can be great fun. You can punch and kick cars at your enemies. On top of this then we get the visor returning, that tags enemies, identifies heat signatures, and then even, this is a new format, but hacking, it's a line, you need to get this in time. It's simple, but a pretty satisfying approach, which can be quite intense when you're hacking, let's say, a turret that's about to fire your way. Alongside this then, of course, expect tons of guns again, and it's a larger selection than the original two entries, but the highlight, it has to be the Predator bow. What makes this special is ammo is limited, but the ammo you get is just badass, including carbon, exploding, and electrocution. It also does not reveal your location when invisible, so this will be key to stealth moments. You fire a gun, your invisibility cloak, it drops, making this the best option. The highlight for me of Crysis though then returns, and that is the customization. With each gun you have a set of customizable options for you to play with, from think scopes to silencers. It's a small selection here, but it allows you to shape them to your attack strategy. This customization then it carries over to the suit, which sees a fair few new options from an extensive skill tree of sorts. This time though they sacrifice the nanocell technology in the 100 system of the past games, and here we get a simple point unlock system ranging from 1 to 3. My favourites here, super strength and verticality, which I think they are pretty self-explanatory. It's great stuff though, and you can bundle them into packages on the fly, so perhaps you'll set yourself up with a stealth approach, an all-out approach as well, but then maybe there's a balance package when you're not sure, how the situation will play out. Apart from that though, this is the Crysis you know and love, gunplay and lots of it. By this point in the series, it kind of lost that magic of being something special and unique. It relied instead on making some slight changes, like a different approach to its world layout and adding that Predator bow to the mix. But as I said in my Crysis 2 review, more of the same isn't always a bad thing. In fact, I prefer this entry over the second game myself. It gets that balance so much better between open locations and linear, so you do feel like you're making more of a difference when the action occurs. The issue I do have with this one though, it's way too short. Of course you got the primary objectives to add some longevity and replayability. It adds secondary optional ones as well, but you'll be lucky if the game lasts you for maybe 6 hours. My run through was closer to 5. It's a game that relied on its multiplayer as much as its single player at launch, and with multiplayer here removed, it for sure now feels kind of light on content. Sure, you could go and play, let's say, on a different difficulty, but that's not going to be for everyone. On a note of difficulty as well, I'd consider this the easiest entry in the series. It's just more forgiving, it's more about having a good time. If you play shooters regularly, I might suggest maybe bump that difficulty up by 1 just to get your money's worth out of it. If it doesn't work for you, then you can always change it back on the fly in the options menu. Otherwise though, look, come here if you want to shoot lots of stuff or stealth kill lots of stuff, and here you can expect to focus on C.E.L.L human enemies, you've got aliens and even some mechs. I do like the AI as well here, each acts differently, you know, the C.E.L.L are strategic, the aliens are fast and aggressive, and yeah, it's just always pushing you to adapt against different enemy forces. Performance wise then on the Switch, same again as with Crysis 2, it's 30 frames per second for the majority and it stumbles occasionally, you know, some of the bigger kind of all-out action scenes. Loading between locations, it has some stutters as well, but generally it's another impressive port. One issue I did notice though, load screens between missions can be extended. I had a few that were close to a couple of minutes at a time. It's not frequent, but I was sitting there on occasion kind of shouting at my screen, telling the game to just kind of hurry up. Overall for gameplay though, like if you enjoyed the first two, you're gonna like this. It's lost some of its kind of creativity now, feeling more generic with every entry, but it's still a lot of fun. The world is better than the second game, and the gameplay overall puts more on the player to get creative rather than a simple linear setup. So visually, I've always loved the world of Crysis 3, that mashup of jungle with such a recognisable location. It's a world that's been destroyed, but the combination with jungle means it's not just lots of grey, rather, you know, rich greens and water and just colour in general. On the Switch, it seems then we are playing with an adaptive resolution just to get things going, and there's some noticeable shifts in here at points. Then the guns, the enemies, you've seen most of them before, but it's another good job. Issues wise, a similar situation to the second entry and the first one. Pixelation is apparent, there's pop-in at times, nothing major, but some of these locations are quite large, so that definitely highlights it. And then also, thanks to the jungle, it can be a little bit tough to spot enemies at times with that lower resolution. I think they got all the power out of the Switch though and cut the right corners, so kudos on the visual port work. Audio finally, and I love the soundtrack and general audio design of Crysis 3. The soundtracks, they've always been good, but this entry is a highlight for me with some seriously sweeping scores just to elevate the action and the emotion of, you know, what is a world in pieces. Sound effects as well, they got more creative, and some of the sounds you'll hear, they're often overpowering, and so they should be. Sadly though, like the second entry, I had a similar issue where some sounds, they seem to be missing slightly, and I've got a feeling they cut them when things got too intense just to help with performance, but it can definitely sound a little bit weird. Overall though, like a pair of headphones, the music blasting and guns firing here, it's up there as one of my favourite shooter sound fields. So the final verdict, and we've now covered all three entries in the series, and while the original remains my personal favourite, Crysis 3 it is a close second. The issue I have with the Switch release is it's just so noticeable how short an experience this one is, with a runtime right around 5 hours, maybe 6 with optional quests. It's a really good 5 hours, do not get me wrong, I just think the price is going to be a little bit more difficult to justify if you are picking them up individually. That said though, like great gunplay, fun weapons, a solid selection of enemies, and a fantastic world make it a fantastic addition to the Switch library. Then the port work, it's an impressive piece of work and shows what a team can do when they focus specifically on building it around the Switch's capabilities. Sure, we don't get 60 FPS, yes, stutters, the audio can get a little strange at times, and then the load screen's a little long, but like I said earlier, I think they cut the right corners and the corners they had to. If I had to describe a Crysis 3 though in comparison to the other entries, Crysis 1 that's the powerhouse, the tech piece, the second, the linear follow-up that lost a little of the series spirit but was still better than most in the genre. This one, this would be the fun one. It gives the players back control, opens up this world, dials down the difficulty a tad and says, just go crazy and here's a bow and arrow for your troubles. A great 8 out of 10 from me today, and it's been great to see the work on show here. Hopefully we may see now Crysis Warhead next, just to kind of finish off the collection. Will you be adding this one to the library though, or are you holding onto that cash? With that then, a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as people do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video.